What's going on, everybody? Thank you all for tuning into this live stream segment of MCSC. Today we're going to be doing a live streamed reaction to this ABC interview on ABC's from Tulsi Gabbard on ABC's This Week. She sat down with George Stephanoupolos, and I was going to catch it eventually. I was too busy trying to dissect the Rogan interview, and because it was an amazing interview, by the way. Once again, go watch it if you have not. And trying to cover literally everything else Tulsi is doing lately. Holy, the woman does not stop moving. She's been on a roll lately. It's been awesome to see. I think that it's important to say that it's cool that I guess she's getting these mainstream interviews now, but is she going to keep getting smeared? Because this is, if y'all don't recall, in 2016, that's basically what happened, right? At first, they blacked out Bernie. They blacked him out completely for the first couple of months, first 3 to 4 months, right before the debates. He was picking up steam, so they had him on to call him a dirty little socialist. That's basically what they had him on to talk about. And every time he would try to talk about Medicare for all, they would be like, nah, but you're a communist. So there's that. And so this interview, however, was so bad, apparently. I haven't seen it yet, right? It's a live reaction. It was so bad that Tulsi's sister, Vrindavan, had to text me to tell me how bad it was. Literally, did you see this? I'm like, no, I haven't seen it yet. She said, it was horrible. Of course, I'm sure Tulsi handled herself just as famously as she always does. But I'm like, oh, nah, if it's that bad, I have to be with my peoples when I watch this, so I can make sure, because what's going to end up happening if I watch it by myself, y'all, I'm going to get on Twitter and I'm going to start, I want to do that. Got stuff to do today. I don't want to do that. I'll be on Twitter for the next 5 hours if I do like that. So here's what we're going to do. We are going to, first of all, you're going to like the video because y'all are awesome and you love me and I appreciate it. Second, we are going to watch the interview in its segments, and we're gonna pray. We're gonna say a little prayer for my sanity and my emotions today, and finally share the video so everybody can see this entertainment that's probably about to take place, right? So let's go ahead and get it started. Oh, let's say a little prayer. Say a little prayer for you.
She joins us from Washington, D.C. this morning. Congresswoman, thank you for joining us right now.
Hello, George. Good morning.
I want to begin. You've taken on the idea, you said, running for president to end regime change wars. I wonder what you thought about that line from Governor Hickenlooper's speech that he said some Democrats are recoiling from past American foreign policy mistakes by looking to withdraw from our global leadership role. Does that apply to you?
No, it doesn't. My focus has been coming from my experience. I enlisted in the Army National Guard after the terrorist attack on 9/11, served as a soldier for over 16 years and deployed twice to the Middle East. In Congress, have served for over 6 years on both the Foreign Affairs and the Armed Services Committee, and bring that experience to the forefront, where as president, I will end these counterproductive and wasteful regime change wars, work to end this new Cold War and nuclear arms race, recognizing how wasteful and costly these are, and take the trillions of dollars that we've been spending, would continue to spend, and invest those resources on serving the needs of the American people.
Okay, all right, a lot of common sense going on right now. Usually when there's this much common sense going on, right, there's usually some crazy stuff about to go down. Usually, because that sounds like most Americans would probably watch that and probably be like, well, what do you mean? That sounds like a swell idea. I would really like to stop spending money on killing other people's kids and selling weapons to, Yemen, for example. Or not Yemen, excuse me, Saudi Arabia to bomb Yemen and spending our special forces time training ISIS to make sure I have, I don't know, healthcare, things like that. Most Americans would get a little touchy or not touchy, but most Americans would be a little bit appreciative, I would think, regardless of what side of the aisle you are on, when someone says, hey, we keep wasting money, I want to not waste money, and also your kids don't have to die under my presidency. So I can almost guarantee this is where it's about to get a little bit ugly. Let's take a listen.
Like healthcare, education, rebuilding our crumbling infrastructure, protecting our environment. There are many urgent needs here that we need to address, and we've got to get our priorities straight.
You resigned your DNC post back in 2016 because you thought Hillary Clinton had a hawkish, interventionist foreign policy. Does that apply to her colleague in the Obama administration, former Vice President Biden?
We'll see what Vice President Biden's foreign policy vision is for this country. We may agree on some issues, disagree.
I'll answer for her. She's really nice. I'm not. She can't say it, but I will. Biden wants to go to Venezuela. Biden wants to overthrow the Maduro regime. So, Tulsi, I know you're trying to be nice. You don't want the Democrats to do what they do. I get that, because the headlines for this interview would have been literally nothing but Tulsi attacks Joe Biden. Got it. Don't worry about it. I got you, homie. Biden is a piece of shit. Biden wants to go to war. Look at what he did in Ukraine. Look at what he promoted while he was literally the whole reason that he was assigned as vice president to Obama was because of his foreign policy. Just saying. So I got you. You ain't gotta say it. That's what homies are for. Let's continue.
On others, the problem that I have seen is that across both Democrat and Republican administrations, and especially in this Trump administration, where right now he is leading us down this dangerous path towards a war with Iran.
He says he doesn't want it.
He says he doesn't want it, but the actions of him and his administration, people like John Bolton and Mike Pompeo, tell us a very different story.
Okay. Wow. Well, first of all, let me just say that is true. Trump says that he defers with his administration as far as wanting to go to war with Iran. And that actually should be something that is celebrated. I think, and he actually said the same thing about Venezuela. He said that he was now, after some information that he received, I guess from Putin, that's what they're saying. There's because of that information, I mean, which in my opinion is common sense. He doesn't want to jump right into military action with Venezuela. Also a good thing. What's interesting about this, though? What is interesting about this is, did you hear them just commend Donald Trump? So that is literally, that's where we're at right now, neoliberal world. Remember how they get so desperate, they get so crazy. Like during the when he was negotiating with Kim Jong-un, and it actually looked like they were about to achieve a deal. Remember that? And it actually worked out pretty well until the neoliberal and neoconservative establishment got involved. But when he brokered that deal, it went from, oh man, Trump's going to start World War III, and it's going to start between North Korea and America, to I can't believe he's negotiating with North Korea. Like, that man can't do anything right at all whatsoever. When he pulled the CIA out of Syria, they critiqued him for it. They attacked him for it. Remember? He pulled the CIA out of Syria, by the way, thanks to none other than Tulsi Gabbard. A couple of other, things came into play as well. But and you can look this up, after the sit down with Tulsi Gabbard, he pulled the CIA out of Syria. We launched attacks on Syria after the fake gas attack happened, the fake chemical weapons attack happened. When I say fake, I mean the government was blamed for it, and it was never the government who conducted it. But it was a good excuse for us to stay there and bomb them again. And then she was never allowed back into the administration. Interestingly enough, also around the same time, Steve Bannon left the administration because Steve Bannon is a douchebag and he's an isolationist, he's a douchebag and he's a racist. But at the end of the day, he is also an isolationist. He does not believe in regime change wars. And so if you notice, the same time that Tulsi was not allowed back in that administration, back in the Oval Office to talk to Trump again, and at the same time, Steve Bannon left, it was after the retaliatory attacks by the U.S. on Syria that came after a chemical weapons attack by the Syrian government, quote unquote, that immediately followed pulling the CIA out of Syria that Tulsi Gabbard was partially responsible for. So it's interesting to me that all of a sudden, well, he doesn't want to go to war. He doesn't want to go to war with Iran. Huh? What? Okay, she says, I don't want to go to war with Iran. I don't think we should do that. But he doesn't want to go to war. So isn't he a better president? What do you think about that? What? I thought y'all hated this man. The problem with Trump, I mean, other than all the obvious, like, personality defects, it's not necessarily that I think that he is a warmongering, like, social. I don't think that he's as bad as Hillary is. Hillary's a different animal. We saw, he died. Hillary is a different animal altogether. My problem with Trump is, other than the obvious, right? Once again, is his susceptibility to being corrupted, because his brand, his personal legacy, his skeletons are so easy to expose that the moment that he steps out of line, they're going to leak more things. And notice a lot of the leaks against Trump, once he started playing ball, like with Venezuela, like with Syria, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, the leaks stopped happening. The cases went his way. They stopped pressing for collusion. Like, as far as, officially. They're still trying to impeach him, but I already said the Dems are going to use whatever excuse they could to try and impeach him anyway. So, like, his problem is susceptibility. It's the people around him are the most dangerous, and they've been doing a good job of keeping people like Tulsi Gabbard out of his face. And the woman who was trying to convince Trump to stay out of Syria, to stay out of Iran and other unnecessary conflicts, they're attacking her now and trying to praise him as if all of a sudden Trump has found Jesus and doesn't want to go to war with Iran. Trump, I don't believe, ever really wanted to go to war with Iran. I believe it was the Bolton and the Pompeos of the world, because he's a bully. Bullies don't actually like fighting. I do know this. That's why he was all about going to Venezuela. So he was like, yeah, we got to fight. We got to actually go, and you might lose. This might be an L. This might be an L on your record. Oh, whoa. I don't like fighting. I just like beating, picking on people who I don't think will fight back. And that's what it's appeared to be with the Trump administration. But apparently that's, now that he said he doesn't want to go to war with Iran, now the neoliberal media loves him again. Isn't that something? Once again, I said, this is the Trump effect. I said Tulsi is going to benefit greatly from the Trump effect, but it'll be to the benefit of all Americans, because she's the real deal. So let's hear what else she has to say.
They are setting the stage for a war with Iran that would prove to be far more costly, far more devastating and dangerous than anything that we saw in the Iraq War, a war that I served in a medical unit where every single day I saw firsthand the high human cost of war.
Well, one of the actions they took this week was evacuating, as you know, our diplomatic posts in Iraq, because they were concerned, based on the intelligence, that Iran may be looking to strike U.S. interests. You don't buy it?
I don't. We heard conflicting stories coming from the British commander, who is the co-commander of the fight against ISIS and al-Qaeda there in Iraq and Syria, saying, hey, he hadn't seen an escalation of tensions or threats.
Uh-oh. You hear what just happened? They just this is what they do, right? What did we, for the last 2 weeks, escalation, every excuse. Iran deal, nuclear weapons, I don't know, maybe they're going to try and attack America, because that's what a country who is not at war and is extremely impoverished because of sanctions would do, right? Attack America for literally no reason, with Israel sitting right there, and established military bases in Syria that we have sitting right there, and Golan Heights, which we are now in control of, sitting right there, that also would give us a strategic advantage. That makes the most sense in the world. So once again, Tulsi says, I'm not going to ask the Boltons of the world, the Patricks of the world, whatever that guy's name is, the Secretary of Defense, the new one, who literally worked for Boeing for 30 years. He's the Secretary of Defense. What a surprise. And he's recent, by the way. The more, if you've noticed, since January, the tensions between Iran and the U.S. have heated up. And this new guy who's taken over for Secretary of Defense, Boeing, 30 years. You do the math. She's like, no, I don't buy it. Straight like that. I don't buy it. Okay, now what? Now, honestly, if there was anyone else, if there were anyone else doing this interview, what would they say? I would love to know in the comment section what you believe they would say if they were asked that question. Oh, well, if that is true, then we have to take swift action to protect U.S. interests in the soldiers and veterans. And Colin Kaepernick sits during the national anthem, and we can't allow that. And, they would go on with the clear attempts to manufacture consent, because that was one of the first ones, right? That was the first attempt to manufacture consent against the Iran war. Tulsi just handled it like a champ. Remember what she said at that town hall? You know what makes me different than everybody else? I don't need generals telling me what is and is not fact about the relationships about the region. I don't need Secretary of Defenses and Secretary of State's national security advisors telling me lies, because I can easily draw the conclusions myself based off of my personal experience. And yet again, she is demonstrating that this is why the understanding of foreign affairs and her uniqueness in that regard is why she's the best option to be president. The first job of a president is foreign relations, foreign policy. It didn't used to be that way. Things changed in the early 1900s. The first job is to tell not just foreign relations, but give the foreign relations in the interactions that we're having abroad correct and proper scope, so that Americans can return back to what we used to be in the early 1900s, 1920s, which is, we not going over there to fight somebody else's war. You got to convince me, and it got to be real. And it took a lot to get out of that mindset. It took a lot. It took a blatant sinking of a ship, and it was a false flag operation that we later found out, for us to even think about entering World War I. It took Pearl Harbor. The Jewish people were being massacred. That didn't even get us into World War II. It took Pearl Harbor being attacked for us to jump into World War II. So Americans are not inherently partial towards war. And I do believe it doesn't take much but someone who's willing to speak the truth for us to basically force the norm to be, we need undoubtable, irrefutable evidence that this happened to Americans before we can just jump into a regime change war and kill innocent people, because that's basically the ones who end up dying, especially when we're talking about situations in the Middle East. Let's continue.
Coming from these Iraqi or these Shia militia serving in Iraq, I think what we're seeing, unfortunately, is what looks a lot like people in the Trump administration trying to create a pretext or an excuse for us to go to war against.
I know what she was trying to say. She didn't really get a chance to say it because she was thinking on the fly. She was like, bah, bah, bah. Did Tulsi just tell the world that the Trump administration was trying to manufacture consent to take us into a war with Iran? And people are still... Who was the best option for presidency? Who's the best option? Did she just tell the world on ABC that their government is trying to manufacture consent for Americans to be okay with war, and we're still trying to guess who the best option for president is? I guess. Whatever. Let's continue. people living in delusion at this point, in my opinion. But let's go.
Iran, a war that would actually undermine our national security, cost us countless American lives, cost civilian lives across the region, exacerbate the refugee crisis in Europe, and it would actually make us less safe by strengthening terrorist groups like ISIS and Al-Qaeda.
You said we have to end the new Cold War, and you have taken a notably softer line on Vladimir Putin.
Hey, real quick, you notice how he won't address that? Because he'll have to defend the Trump administration. Because, like, what happened? I thought that the Trump administration always lies all the time about everything. That's what y'all usually say. But now you're trying to use that same administration to justify going to war with Iran and manufacture consent. But Tulsi presented an argument that was so irrefutable, it put him in a corner. Now you have to defend the Trump administration. How do you do that without coming out looking like the loser? You can't. So you got to switch subjects. He didn't actually address anything she just said. He just moved on because he realized, I am no match for this woman. I got to switch topics and hope I can get her on something that's so outlandish that she can't really fight back. But let's see if she manages to do it anyway, because she tends to do well.
Russia than some other Democrats and Republicans. Want to put up a headline from the Daily Beast this week that said Tulsi Gabbard's campaign is being boosted by Putin apologists. And, you know, in the past, you met with Assad. You defended Russian military operations in Syria. You opposed the arrest.
Bruh, I know he did not use that Onion article. I know that's not what just happened. I know that's not what you put the headline up. That is literally the problem with our country in general, is that they only read headlines to begin with. But I know you did not use that Onion hit piece. Oh, bruh. And then got the Russian up there. Got the Russian little ads up there. Oh my. The same hit piece that tried to claim that Lee Camp backs the Russian narrative, because Lee Camp of Redacted Tonight says that he doesn't want to go to war with Venezuela. He would prefer not to go to nuclear war with Russia. And he doesn't want to go to war with Iran. And he doesn't want us to continuously bomb and continue to destroy Syria. That was their excuse for saying that, one of the excuses they use for saying that Lee Camp is a Russian asset or pro-Putin. They said a professor, academic, I believe his name is Stephen Cohen, because he is a Russian professor, a pro-Russian professor, that exposed the truth about what was happening in the Ukraine. By the way, he exposed the truth about what was happening in the Ukraine. We were told that it was Russia's fault. Turned out that was a lie, because later on that same year, the huge expose about the Uranium One deal and Bill Clinton's interactions with the Ukrainian oligarchs to prop them up and demonize Russia came out. He wasn't pro anything. He was saying, we're lying about what's happening in the Ukraine. We're the ones responsible for a lot of the plight and the problems and the corruption that's happening there. And it got exposed as true. So the Stephen Cohen professor wasn't wrong. He actually knew what was actually happening because he is a Russian studies professor. But they said because of that, he's a Russian asset too. He's the #1 defender of Putin in the country. That's what they described him as. And they said, of course, they listed out a lot of facts for why he's the #1 Russian Putin apologist in the country. And they literally use their own article. They, because usually when you see a link, because you want to make a bold claim like that, you better have link after link after link. They use another Daily Beast article from 2014 where they allege the same thing. And they actually only mentioned him once in that article. Their claim for somebody is the biggest Putin apologist in the country is based off of another article that they wrote where they only mentioned him one time. And you're going to use, this is literally like the Onion. That's what the Daily Beast has become, the Onion. And you are going to, I had a good hearty laugh debunking that nonsense. And that's the headline you're going to put up. You're not going to talk about the ridiculousness of the article? Oh, she's Russian. Ooh. You visited Assad in the past. You know that, right? You visited Assad in the past. Giorgio. Jorge. Listen, dog. I don't know if you've ever been on a Foreign Affairs Committee before, but when you're on the Foreign Affairs Committee, you're on the committee that handles affairs of foreign matters, which requires you to engage in foreign affairs so that affairs of the foreign nature don't get out of hand. So every now and then you have to talk to foreign leaders because of America's affairs with those foreign leaders. If you're on that committee that is said to undertake affairs of a foreign nature. Okay, so Tulsi, as a member of the Foreign Affairs Committee, went to go get the truth about Syria because, Tulsi has this thing where she doesn't, if she can stop it, if she can help it, she doesn't really like people getting bombed for no reason. It's not her thing. She doesn't like soldiers, because she's treated a lot of them, George, having their limbs blown off, being mentally destabilized, and committing suicide, which we are seeing amongst veterans at an all-time high, because of a fake threat to the U.S. that was completely and totally manufactured for oil, for money, and nothing else. So I apologize, on behalf of Tulsi, that she went and did her goddamn job as a member of the Committee of Foreign Affairs, since clearly no one else was interested in doing so. But I'll let her tell her story.
Julian Assange suggested that Russian election meddling is no worse than America's historically. Do you believe that Vladimir Putin is a threat to U.S. national security?
It's unfortunate that you're citing that article, George, because it's a whole lot of fake news. What I am focused on is what is in the best interest of the American people. What is in the best interest of our national security, keeping the American people safe. And what I'm pointing out consistently, time and time again, is that our continued wasteful regime change wars have been counterproductive to the interests of the American people.
Ooh, Tulsi, relax, calm down. You spitting too much fire right now. I ain't got no, oh, boy. But she said, you quoting a whole lot of fake news. It's unfortunate. You quoting a whole lot of fake news, dog. Didn't even entertain them. Look, I'm trying to told you. Literally, they just used. Did you hear what they did? Did you hear? They just tried to use a bunch of buzzwords in a matter of 30 seconds. Well, at one point, you voted or you went to go see Assad, and also you took a softer position on Assange, and then something about Putin. And do you think Putin is a problem for the U.S. interests? What? How did all of those questions lead up to, do you think Putin is a problem, a threat to the United States interests? What kind of bullshit buildup was that? Oh my God. That was almost as bad as the Daily Beast article, but not quite as bad. Let's continue.
And the approach that this administration has taken in essentially choosing conflict rather than seeing how we can cooperate and work out our differences with other countries in the world has been counterproductive to our national
security. Many Democrats have been tougher on Vladimir Putin than President Trump. Do you think Democrats are taking too hard a line?
I think that the escalation of tensions that we've seen between the United States and nuclear-armed countries like Russia and China, and you're right, it has come from this administration. It's also come from some Democrats and Republicans in Congress. It has brought us to this very dangerous point where nuclear strategists point out that we are at a greater risk of nuclear war now than ever before in history. And we've got to understand what the consequences of.
Are you telling me, Tulsi, that in the neo-McCarthyist era, where literally having a Russian last name means that you should be indicted by the U.S. government, that like in the middle of the neo-McCarthyist era, there's actually a stronger chance of nuclear war now than ever before in history? in the middle of a new neo-McCarthyist era, and that maybe we should not keep blaming Russia for all of our problems that we know are caused by the United States in actuality, and we're really just blaming Russia. Are you saying that we shouldn't do that so we don't go to war and die? Because I moved to Miami because I don't like winter. So just like every other type of winter, I'm sure I would be just as displeased with the nuclear winter. I'm just saying. So is that what you're saying, Tulsi? Because I would probably have to agree with that, and I think that the majority of the American people don't want to live in a nuclear winter either, except for Canadians, because clearly they love winter. I don't know why the hell they live up there. That's insane. But different discussion for a different day. Let's continue. Common Sense 2020. Let's go.
It's something that we in Hawaii know all too well, with the wake-up call that we had about a little over a year ago, when we got a text alert over 1 million cell phones across our state saying that a ballistic missile was incoming. Seek shelter immediately. This is not a drill. This was terrifying for people all across our state because there was no shelter. And even though that turned out to be a false alarm, it points to the very real threat we face if we continue to go down this path of this new Cold War, ever escalating tensions, and a nuclear arms race. And this is what I seek to change, to build relationships that are based on cooperation rather than conflict, de-escalate these tensions, work out the differences that we have, the problems that we have with other countries, and also recognize that in examples like denuclearizing the Korean Peninsula, we've got to be able to work with countries like Russia and China to be able to accomplish that objective to keep the American people safe.
Congresswoman, thanks for your time this morning.
Thank you.
So overall, Tulsi handled herself. What? Not even surprised anymore. I don't know why I pretend like I am, because I'm not. She handled herself extremely well. She was unbothered, unrattled. I'm pretty sure she's dealt with this so many times before. That it's this type of stuff. But that ridiculous. Look at this article of the Daily Beast. Also, Syria. Also, Vladimir Putin in Syria and Assad. And I'm just going to throw as many neo-McCarthy warmongering buzzwords that I think scare Americans. And no, we don't. It doesn't work anymore. It does not work anymore, people. It doesn't work anymore. The fact that she called out this administration's attempt to manufacture consent. Listen. Like I said, you already know what I said before. I said, I know I endorse her, but every time I watch an interview of her, I'm like, I got to endorse this woman. Because she is, how many times can you be so on point? How can you be evolving every single interview? How can you be getting it right on damn near every single issue? Now, for people, there is a complaint that people say she doesn't talk about domestic policy enough. Well, she doesn't really get a chance to. They spend most of the interview smearing her. She never gets to talk about Medicare for all, even though she's part of the Sanders Institute and understands it just as well as Bernie does. She never gets to talk about her Securing America's Elections Act. You wonder why. She doesn't get to talk about her OFF Act, All Fossil Fuels Act. You wonder why. Because these are the policies that would make every American question those who they believe are more progressive than Tulsi. Well, if all these other people are more progressive than Tulsi, then I don't know what a progressive is anymore. What is more progressive than calling out this administration's attempt to manufacture consent rather than quoting them? You hate them in every other scenario, but the moment it's time to go to war, all of a sudden, every single person in this race either agrees or they'll disagree about going to war, but then they'll say something like, I know they're a bad person, I know they're a dictator, I know all this other stuff is true, but I just don't want to go to war. It's not enough. Because Woodrow Wilson didn't want to go to war either. Just letting you know, World War I happened during that time. Let everybody know. Just saying. After a while, gotta accept the facts, people. There's no one better to be president. Now, if you have some other crazy strategy in your head about what you think may take place, that's on you. Your opinion will definitely change after the debates, because what you think she ain't popular. Like I said, you think that. I worked for Bernie in 2015. I worked for him in 2015, 2% chance of winning going into that debate with almost as crowded of a debate stage. Maybe there'll be two more people than on that debate stage, or on this debate stage, than was on Bernie's first time debating. Understand something. The game is about to change. The narrative is about to change. And these town halls will quickly become massive rallies. Because the way I see it, there's only one person unapologetically and unequivocally telling the truth in this entire presidential race. And that's Tulsi Gabbard. Thank you all so much for tuning into this live stream segment. We will be back in about 15 or 20 minutes, so make sure you check back in. And then we're going to be covering some other stuff, so please check back in. Thanks for tuning in. Leave your comments below. Join our Patreon if you have not. And more than anything else, people, always remember, find your balance. Peace. Thanks for watching that segment of Mi Casa es Su Casa. Make sure you follow us on Twitter, on Facebook, on Roku TV, and on JustNForm.com. Also, you can make sure that you're subscribed to the channel by going to the subscribe button, pressing it, and hitting that notification bell to get all of our notifications. And of course, you can help us reach our goal of 500 patrons on Patreon by supporting the show by donating as little as $1. You can click on the link in the description below for that. And remember, more than anything else, find